So recently, Rachel Reeves came out and announced two big projects. And I think it's worth talking about two of these big projects because we've talked on this channel a lot. Our long-time viewers will know that one of the bad things about the last government was they would talk up things like the leveling up. Like you may remember, we went over the leveling up white paper. The first two chapters, really good. Like generally, really quite good. Said everything that could ever be said and you wanted to see about what leveling up could actually be. And I will say this now, you can even go back and watch that video. It's a while ago since we did it, though. I was flabbergasted that we actually had, for a second, a conservative government that somehow strangely understood what it actually had to do to level up. And of course, the cost of it involved as well. Then, of course, we got to the Treasury side of it, and they then didn't give the money that was needed to achieve that leveling up. So we've seen projects like this come and go. Even turning this corridor between like Oxford and Cambridge into like the UK's Silicon Valley. We'll get into it in a moment, but it's not the first time we've heard this either. This has been, once again, a long-going idea and project, especially by Michael Gove. Like, Michael Gove was the last big politician to bring this up. And there are reasons for him to say this. Even Rachel Reeves, I think, gets this and why that area in particular could really become an actual UK Silicon Valley. And like I say, we'll go into that in a moment. But also, Heathrow's third runway. And I will tell you now, I am someone who has gone very back and forth on Heathrow having a third runway because, as we'll see in a moment, I think there are very strong arguments both for and against it. And I find it really difficult, even based on those arguments, and we'll go into those in a moment as well, to say where we should come down on it. I find it very difficult to say where we should come down on Heathrow's third runway, because I've said again on this channel many times before, infrastructure is important, really important, and it has not been built by the Conservative Party since they came into power in the coalition. So it has been a long time, and Britain's infrastructure has been slowly but surely getting worse. So focusing on infrastructure, looking at things like that, it is needed. And I know a lot of people are upset about it, again, because it's airline stuff. I get that. I understand. But at the same time, that will bring in a lot of pros as well as the cons. And like I say, I think there are strong arguments for both sides of this. So before we do go getting into that, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. Down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can well buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel that way. So let's crack on then into this. So Heathrow's third runway. What are the pros and cons? So let's go over the cons first. So first of all, obviously the big one, environmental impact. Yes, these flights will, of course, mean more CO2 emissions. This will contribute to climate change. I think that's pretty obvious, the big con in this. And especially when we are really committing to net zero. Yeah, doesn't look, obviously, very good. But again, if we are committed to net zero and we do, a lot of other things as well, then maybe there are ways that we can mitigate that, because you're not going to stop people flying. I think there's this idea that a lot of like hardcore environmentalists have that you can somehow like stop people flying. Didn't really work out. Look how fast people ran back to like going on holiday abroad after the pandemic. You ain't going to stop people traveling abroad. I'm sorry, that idea and that ship has long since sailed. On to this next one, air and noise pollution. Of course, you see that around West London, there's the area that's going to be particularly affected by this. It will, of course, mean a lot more noise, and of course, more aircraft will, of course, worsen the air quality in and around that area. So obviously, that is a concern that we should have, and that is something that you should probably look into as well. The next, of course, is going to be the cost of this. It is going to be a very expensive project. It comes in at least, I think, 14 billion. And that is before you even talk about what legal challenges are going to try and delay the construction. What protests could also delay that construction as well. So it is no doubt that this could be spiral from 14 billion, probably even into the 20s, because you have all these legal challenges. You get these protests that try and stop it. And of course, this isn't going to be built instantly either. This is really a 10-year project to build this. So it will be a long time to build. And speaking of building, there will be homes and communities that will be affected. Hamsworth, I think, is the village that would have to be demolished to build this third runway. So you would have to certainly be facing legal challenges from all those people of the Hamsworth area, and of course, you would have to have payouts for them for having to demolish their home. But that's sometimes what happens when you do big infrastructure projects. It's not just runways or things like this that happen as well. And this is probably, I think, the biggest one: alternative airports, because there are other airports. There are other airports that could also do with being expanded. Recently, we've just had really good news up here in South Yorkshire that Doncaster City, well, Doncaster Sheffield Airport, again, weird whole story about how it became to call that, but we won't get into that now. Doncaster Sheffield Airport being reopened, that's really good. I think that is really good. It's good to have a local regional airport where I could potentially fly from if I need. So it saves me traipsing right across the Pennines to have to go to Manchester pretty much every time, or traipse all the way down to London. Miles easier if I can just go to there, or even over to Leeds Bradford. But again, Leeds Bradford, terrible airports, absolute terrible airport. So those are at least the cons of this. And I think you've got to go through the pros. So it is right. It is very, very right. This will be a boost to the economy. This could generate billions for our economy. This will create jobs. And of course, it will increase trade opportunities, because guess what? Cargo is easily still a big factor when it comes to flying. You know, Doncaster, Sheffield, because again, it used to be the Vulcan bomber runway that can facilitate some big cargo aircraft. Same for these as well. This would also mean, now you've got a third runway, this would also mean more flights, more destinations. So, as I said, there's always pros and cons when it comes to this. So, more international connections, and this would ultimately mean really strengthening London's position and its status as a global hub. That would be good to do. That would be something very good to cement. That will mean, of course, more tourism income, better for the economy overall, especially there. This would ultimately also reduce congestion and delays. Heathrow is already operating at near full capacity. So this extra space is very, very much needed. But likewise, you can also say, well, why not expand, Gatwick or Stansted? Again, valid points worth bringing up. But it is worth bringing up still. Heathrow is the busiest airport in the UK. In Europe, I think we're either second or third, because I think it's either the one just outside Berlin. I can't remember its name. And then I think it's Charles de Gaulle. And then it might be Heathrow. I'm not exactly sure where we stand on those charts. And then in the world charts, I think we just miss out on the top 10. I think. Oh, no, we might. No, actually, no, we are in the top 10, but I think we miss out on the top 5. I think last time I checked, I can't exactly remember now. But like I say, this airport, Heathrow, at pretty much full capacity. It needs that extra capacity. And we've talked just how much important capacity is to things like railways, why we need to build HS2, for example. Um, so this would also increase competition. You would have more flights and more airlines. This would mean no lower prices for passengers. That would be a good thing for our aviation industry as a whole. And finally, this ultimately would support business growth. Easy travel would now benefit UK businesses, and this would attract investment and trade if you've got that ease of travel. So, they're your pros and cons for your third runway. And honestly, I know it's a controversial issue, but it has strong arguments on both sides. Like, it's difficult to say even now for me, thinking which side I would come down on. I think I am more pro third runway than I am anti. But if you're not going to build a third runway, then I think you should be looking at expanding, Stansted or Gatwick, or looking at how you can improve other airports around the country. Leeds, Bradford, probably one that needs doing. But so that's the third runway. Now, of course, about UK Silicon Valley, because as I said before, this isn't the first time this has been talked about. This has been talked about well in advance by a lot of conservatives in the past. Now, why? Why is this being considered here? Well, quite frankly, it's where a lot of these businesses just happen to be located. It's why Silicon Valley became, well, Silicon Valley. It's where those businesses just happen to be, and then eventually they attracted more. Same for what's going on in this corridor between, Cambridge and Oxford. This is becoming very, very, very quickly more and more tech focused oriented. You've got chip building businesses down there. You've got labs. You've got the skills-based knowledge with like universities and schools teaching this stuff. So if you are a government and you want to have a win, then investing in this is an absolute win. It's a no-brainer. So the difference will be this time is, will Rachel Reeves go through with it, where you had Rishi Sunak who didn't go through with it time and time again, even though people like Michael Gove were pushing him to do this type of investment. So will she actually go through with it? Will she give the money that is needed to really do that? Because that will be a really good investment into that area. It will build up that industry there, and that will be good for the UK as a whole. Now, there will be some people asking, well, why can't you do this up in the north? Well, big problem there. Where in the north is that expertise, the schools? There are obviously schools and universities that do this, but there's a lot more in that valley, in that gulf. Where are those businesses? Where's the chip building stuff? That would take time to move from there up to the north there. So it doesn't really make sense when there's a lot of other stuff, a lot of other industries you could really sort of better focus on up in the north. Again, but if they did decide to do something like that, again, I'd love it. I'm pro north investment upon here, of course, being from Yorkshire. But that is something that does need to be done. We have heard about this before, and the big difference will be is, will Rachel Reeves go through with it? Because it is an economic no-brainer to do it. It would be a big investment. It would be a positive investment, and it would be good for the whole of the UK to see that investment done. But is Rachel Reeves going to go through with it? And that will, of course, be the big test between her and, of course, certainly Rishi Sunak, who last time had this opportunity, didn't do it. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on this, of course, as well. So let me know what you think down below as well. And, of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.